Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mang. Welcome back to Solo Roll Mangging with Shadowdark. Really nice little old school kind of system. New school sensibilities, things like that. Actually, old school sensibilities, new school quality of life. I don't know how you describe it, really. But anyways, I hope you checked out my previous video looking at a level 0 gauntlet or funnel adventure for Shadowdark that we did. That was pretty fun. But now we're going to go on to something a bit bigger. This is going to be a level 1 adventure. And we're going to be running Lost Citadel of the Scarlet Minotaur from the Shadowdark Quick Start rules. And so, much like the previous thing, this is going to take place entirely in the dungeon. We're not trapped in the dungeon at the start or anything like that. We are like actively walking into it in search of treasure or whatever. So we can leave at any point if we want to regroup and recuperate. But the meat of this obviously is in the dungeon. We're not going to be going off on random tangents. So, normally, I guess if you were going to go from a level 0 to a level 1 adventure, you'd have your level 0 characters that have leveled up. But we didn't finish the level 0 adventure. And even if we did, chances are we'd only end up with like 1 or 2 level 0 characters. So we're going to be just making 4 fresh level 1 characters. So we can go over kind of character creation. And hopefully they all survive. Probably not. We'll see how it goes. So, again, we're on Shadow Darklings here. Nice, simple character creator. We're still sticking with the core material. So, 6 ancestries, or, races. And then the core 4 classes. Fighter, Priest, Thief, Wizard. And I want to have 1 of each. So, I want to have a Fighter, a Priest, a Thief, and a Wizard. Classic sort of group here. Not that classic. I mean, really classic would be like the Fighting Man, Magic User, and Thief, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, so let's start with our Fighter straight out the gate. So we're going to roll for a random background. Our Fighter is a jeweler. He can easily appraise value and authenticity. I say he, but I guess it's not, doesn't really matter. So backgrounds for Shadowdark, pretty basic, pretty simple. It's typically just a 1-word sort of career or, some nature of background your character has. And if you can argue to the GM that background is applicable to a role that you're doing, the GM can grant you advantage on that role. So rolling twice, take the higher result. It's pretty good. A savvy player obviously is going to try to argue for a lot of things, and plenty of backgrounds are better than others. Jeweler is kind of specific compared to like Scout, or Soldier, but whatever. Okay, roll stats. It's 3d6 down the line. Nothing funky about that. Okay, so yeah, I guess we're not making our Fighter. We're making our Thief. I didn't really think about that. But yeah, so stats, completely random. It's 3d6 down the line. If you end up with all of your stats being lower than 14, you do get to re-roll all of them. But otherwise, it's whatever it is whatever it is. So, we ended up with a 9 strength, 16 dex, 9 con, 10 int, 15 wisdom, 10 charisma. So, Shadow Darkling sort of gives you rankings as to like the viability based on your stats of what classes would best suit those stats. So for us, it's mostly a thief due to the high dex. Priest is also kind of in there with the 15 wisdom. Fighter is very not a good option, although you could be a dex fighter, but the problem is the low con. Sorry. So you could be like a bow fighter that sits in the back, and really just cares about damage. It's not horrific. The fighter is not strictly designed to be frontline. It often is, but it's not strictly designed that way. And due to their weapon mastery system, you could very easily just be a good fighter with a bow. But in our case, we'll probably find a better frontline fighter. So, Thief, very viable here. 16 dex is solid. We'll likely be able to bump that up to 18 with talent. The low con is kind of a bummer because the Thief does not have super great HP numbers regardless. So it makes them very fragile. So we're probably going to want to be a bow thief or like, I don't know, throwing dagger thief or something like that. You know, the wisdom is kind of useful for like searching and perception kind of related stuff, which helps. He could be a priest, but I don't think the priest has many options for using dex compared to strength. So it really would just be like a heal bot kind of priest, which is okay, but it's not perfect. So yeah, this will be our thief, the jeweler. It kind of makes sense. For our ancestry, we have goblin. Do I want to stick with that? Not especially. Goblin, I mean, all Ancestry really does in Shadowdark is just gives you one trait. So the Goblin's trait is that they can't be surprised. They can never be surprised. Which is potentially really good. It depends on the GM and how often they utilize surprise, you know? And just kind of the game that you're running and stuff like that. It's potentially pretty solid. Some GMs might be really kind of lenient with it and helpful with it, where having a goblin in your party and them not being able to be surprised, they can then help out the rest of the party. But, you know, strictly speaking, if the whole group gets surprised and then the goblin is the only one that doesn't get surprised, you know, the monsters still are going to be ravaging the rest of the group. So it's hard to say. I've definitely seen complaints from people that the goblin trait is a little weak compared to the other ancestries. And I have thought about maybe coming up with something house ruled. But we're going to go with human. Honestly, human is kind of the best, as it usually is in like fantasy D20 games. Humans usually get like extra feats and stuff, and here they get an extra talent roll at first level, which is pretty good, as you'll see. So we'll go with human. Language, I'm not too concerned with. We got Elvish, and then where thief is our class. Okay, so thieves. All the classes have lists or restrictions on what weapons and armor they can utilize. So thieves can only utilize, in the core rulebook, obviously a lot of supplements, including official supplements, add new weapon types. And that would just kind of be on a case-by-case basis with your GM, I think. Like, you know, a sling. The thief is not allowed to use a sling because this is from the core rulebook. The sling is from a supplement, so the core rulebook doesn't mention the sling. But I think most GMs would probably allow it if you wanted to use a sling, especially because it has like identical stats to a short bow. But the thief in the core rulebook can use a club, a crossbow, a dagger, short bow, or short sword. And for armor, they're restricted to leather armor or mithril chainmail, which is quite expensive. Their hit points are 1d4 per level, and they have 2 special traits, abilities. They have backstab, so if they hit a creature who's unaware of their attack, deal an extra weapon die of damage. And you add additional weapon dice of damage equal to half your level rounded down. So at level 1, it's just going to be, say, 2d4 or 2d6 on a backstab. But at level 2, you're going to get 3d6. And then at level 4, you're going to get 4d6 of damage on a backstab, and so on and so forth. You also get talents at odd levels. Yes, odd levels. So, pretty much in the core rulebook, at least, every class is going to get something at each level. Either a talent or one of their core abilities kind of gets upgraded. Their other thing is thievery. So they always technically have thieves' tools on them. It doesn't take up any gear slot. They always have it. And they also get advantage when climbing, sneaking, applying disguises, finding and disabling traps, picking pockets, opening locks, other similar delicate tasks. It's a very powerful, potent thing for thieves. It makes them, thieves by far. They are thieves. And there was some discussion about, can a fighter pick a lock? Are they able to pick locks, or is that strictly only thieves and that's it, and the fighter has to smash it open? So there was some discussion, people leaning one way or the other. Some people said that fighters should be able to pick locks, but they don't get advantage. Some said no, they definitely can't pick locks. That's the thieves thing. Others said that some fighters could learn how to pick locks if they learned it as a downtime activity. Honestly, I think that's usually how I would roll. Is why would your character know how to pick locks? It is a skill. Your character does not have every skill that an individual could have. There has to be an explanation. There has to be time spent either as part of your background, maybe, or more likely, you actively spend time learning it during a campaign. Okay, so then we have our class talents. So every class is going to roll 2d6 at level 1, and at odd levels thereafter. And depending on the roll, you might get +2 to one of your kind of key stats. Most of the classes get +1 to melee and ranged attacks. Other stuff usually applies to your specific abilities. So the thief could get +1 dice of damage on all their backstabs. They could get advantage on initiative rolls. And then the 12 result is usually just picking whichever one you want. So, yeah, it's definitely kind of new school, because I'm pretty sure most old school games, there isn't ways to just easily increase your stats like that and bump up your stats. So Shadowdark's a little generous there. So since we're a human, we get 2 talents. Our first one, our backstabs, will deal +1 dice of damage. And even though it's called backstab, it's any weapon hit on an unaware creature. So we can do that with bows. So we can be a stealth archer, which is pretty nice, because already now, at level 1, with a short bow, which I think is a d4 of damage, we're already doing 3d4 of damage, which is enough to kill a lot of stuff at level 1 that we're likely to kind of encounter. Really nice. So we can definitely pick stuff off on an opening volley. And then our second talent, +1 to melee and ranged attacks. Really pretty nice. So now when we shoot a bow, we're going to get +4 to the roll. Which isn't the highest possible, that you could have. Fighters could very possibly get +6 on their weapon attacks at level 1. Not super likely, but it is definitely possible. But +4 is very solid, so we're happy with that. For our hit points, we rolled a 2. Our con mod is -1, so we have a single solitary HP. But unlike our level 0 characters, we won't die immediately at 0 HP. So, you know. But yeah, definitely Stealth Archer is this guy's MO. Okay, for our money, we randomly rolled, and we got 30 gold pieces, which is above... No, it's slightly below average. We will buy a crawling kit that costs 7 gold and takes up 7 of our 10 gear slots. You get 10 gear slots or a number of slots equal to your strength stat, whichever number is higher. So we have 10. We've used up 7 on our... So the standard crawling kit. This includes flint and steel, a couple torches, rope, grappling hook, rations, iron spikes. But obviously we want our bow. So the short bow, D4 damage, 6 gold pieces. That's what we're going to go for. We could go with the crossbow, which is a D6. And I suppose for stealth purposes, when you want to just ambush and do the most amount of damage, that is kind of better. Yeah, I'm actually leaning towards crossbow now that I think about it, because the downside of the crossbow is that you have to load it afterwards, you have to reload it, and you have to give up your move in order to reload it. But from a stealth archer sort of position, that's not that bad. So yeah, let's go with a crossbow. That means that on an ambush shot, 3d6 damage we're doing, which at level 1 is quite insane, to say the least. So that's good. And then we need bolts. So we'll grab 20 crossbow bolts. We have 1 gear slot left. I'm tempted to leave that one open and flexible. We'll let the fighter carry all the other bullshit, because he's going to most likely have a lot of gear slots. So I think that's fine. As for our name, it's going to be Morglin. Our alignment will be chaotic, of course. And, yeah, we worship one of the lost deities. Okay, there's our character. So we're going to export that as a form fillable PDF. And there we go. Morglin. Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. I can't complain too much about our thief. Solid stuff. Okay. Let's move on then to our next character. I know, this is a time-consuming process. We're definitely not finishing this adventure in 1 video. Probably not even 2 videos. This is going to be a bit of a lengthier one, but that's fine. Okay, our background for this one is a wizard's apprentice. You have a knack and eye for magic. Now, you'd think that would lean towards being a wizard, but the wizard already has a knack and eye for magic. So, but you could make the argument then that the background could give you advantage on rolls that your class that might not necessarily give you. And there you go. Our stat rolls 100% aligned with wizard. Our stat rolls quite shit. This is not a fantastic wizard. It's got a lot of room to grow. And again, I'm leaning towards human, because what we really would like is either +2 to our int or +1 to our spellcasting checks, because having only a 12 int and being a wizard is not ideal. That means for all our spellcasting checks right now, we're going to be adding +1. And you could pretty easily have that be like +5. No, not pretty easily. Let me scratch that. You could fairly easily have it at +4. So our 2 best options then are human for the 2 talents at level 1, or an elf, which would give us +1 to spellcasting checks, which is kind of what we're hoping for in a talent anyways. The other thing that we could get out of a talent, though, is advantage on casting one of our spells. And that equates to like a +5 or so most of the time for that specific spell. And that's kind of good. I mean, it's obviously having an advantage on a spell means you're much less likely to lose it during the course of the day. And we'll go over the rules of spellcasting later. So again, I'm still inclined to go human, and we might end up with 4 humans just because it's... yeah, they're just pretty damn good. All right, our wizard speaks Marin. He can speak to merfolk. Okay, wizard. All right, wizards can use daggers and stabs. That's it. They can't use any armor. Very simple. They're very restricted. All their power comes from their spells, of course. They also get D4 hit points per level. They get a lot of languages, but for a standard kind of one-shot dungeon crawl, it's not super important. They can learn spells from scrolls, so if we come across any scrolls, we could pick up some new spells. And we start with 3 tier 1 spells. And we go on from there. Yeah, okay. So the core rulebook, tier 1 wizard spells has like 12, I think, 12, which is an okay number. These are all very classic spells, Burning Hands, Light, Mage Armor, Magic Missile, Sleep, Charm Person, classic stuff. But obviously supplements add more spells. There is a big supplement called Novice Magic, which bumps up the tier 1 wizard spells to like 40 and adds a lot of other, sort of classic spells. But for the purposes of this, we're sticking with the traditional ones. All right. So our wizard speaks Dwarvish, Thanian, Diabolic, Celestial. Boy, oh boy. Let's roll random spells, but I'm reserving the right to change these if I really don't like it. But they're all pretty useful, so you can't really go wrong. I would say Magic Missile is a very nice one, but you can do so much with like just Charm Person and Sleep. Okay, Protection from Evil, Magic Missile, Floating Disc. Honestly, probably one of the worst rolls I could have gotten. Floating Disc, lasts 10 rounds or, like 100 minutes, give or take. Carries up to 20 gear slots and hovers nearby. Yeah, I mean, if you're loading it up with a lot of loot, okay. But, like, utility purposes outside of that, creativity purposes, it's a little... yeah, it's not great. And then Protection from Evil, theoretically really nice for the spell's duration, which is as long as you want to focus on casting that spell every round. Chaotic Beings have disadvantage on attack rolls and hostile spell casting checks against the target. And they can't be possessed, compelled, or beguiled. But the thing is, you have to, like, touch someone to cast it, and then you have to focus on that spell. So you can't do anything else, really, on your turn, outside of just focusing on casting that spell over and over. Potentially really good for, like, here, let me buff up the fighter, and then he goes into this den of chaos. But, I don't know, I'm not overly impressed with it. It's not the end of the world if we went with it, but, yeah, there's better stuff. So let's re-roll that to Charm Person, which is absurdly good. Range is near, so you don't even have to touch him. To last for 1d8 days, or until you or your allies do anything harmful to the target. And it targets one humanoid of level 2 or less within near range who regards you as a friend for the duration. That never scales up at all, so it's always going to be one humanoid of level 2 or less. But at level 1, very useful. And even going forward, at higher levels outside of dungeons and stuff, you can still do a lot of things with Charm Person. 1d8 days is a lifetime, Alright, and then Hold Portal. 10 rounds. Basically, you know, a creature has to make a strength check against your spellcasting check to open the door or a doorway or an archway or any sort of or window, whatever you can really argue. The knock spell ends this spell. Is the knock spell even in the game? Oh yeah, it's a tier 2. Alright, let's roll with it. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, so our first talent, we got +2 to intelligence or +1 to wizard spellcasting checks. +2 to intelligence pretty much is +1 to wizard spellcasting checks, as well as any intelligence checks. So we'll go with that. And then our second one, same thing. So now we bumped up our int to 16, which is a lot better. +3. Okay, and look at that. We rolled a 4 on the d4. We have a +2 con mod, so our wizard has a mighty 6 hit points. Okay, we ended up with 40 gold, above average, so we can go quite ham. It didn't offer me the option for some reason to buy the crawling kit, which is kind of nice. I don't know where that went. We'll of course buy a staff. It's just kind of traditional, but a dagger also not bad to have. We can't have any armor, and then beyond that, we kind of want to just grab some various things that could be of use. Let's grab a mirror. 10 gold pieces, you never know. Grab our rations. Yeah, I mean, I'll buy a couple torches just because why not? We don't have that many gear slots here. I'll buy a flask. And honestly, that's probably fine for our wizard. His name is Forbles. He is a lawful wizard. He worships Ord, of course, the god of magic. Makes sense. Okay, there is our wizard done. Moving on. Let's see what else we get. Banished. Your people cast you out for supposed crimes. Honestly, I think that's like the worst background as far as mechanical benefit. Because it's just like, oh, well, because I was banished, I really know how to do nothing. Okay. Well, so they gave us, we got, man, +3 int, +2 wisdom. But priest, they put pretty unlikely, well, compared to wizard, obviously, with the +3 int. But, yeah, the priest with the -2 strength mod is pretty shitty. Let's re-roll this, see if we can't get something better. Okay. Yeah, let's make this our fighter. This is a good fighter. Oh, it's a solid fighter. He's got +2 strength. He has no negatives, which is awesome. +1 con, +1 wisdom. This is solid. And our fighter is a scholar that knows much about ancient history and lore. Awesome. We randomly rolled human. Let's be different. I like my fighters to be dwarves, and they get +2 HP to start with, and they roll their hit points with advantage. So, very likely for dwarves to have great HP. Fighter. Fighters can use all weapons in the game, all armor in the game, all shields, everything. They can use everything. They're the best. They get 1d8 hit points per level. So we're gonna be big styling on hit points. They get to add their Constitution modifier if positive to your gear slots. So right now he'll have 14 plus 1, so he'll have 15 gear slots. And then big one, weapon mastery. Choose one type of weapon. You gain +1 to attack and damage with that weapon type. In addition, add half your level to these rolls. So again, this scales up on even levels. So at level 1, just +1 to attack and damage with that weapon type. They also get grit, choosing strength or dexterity at the start, and they have advantage on checks of that type to overcome an opposing force, such as kicking open a stuck door or slipping free of rusty chains. So for weapon mastery, we're gonna go with I believe great axes can be used one-handed. Okay, we also got 40 gold. That's great. Great axe are versatile, so you can use them one or two-handed. So, I'm sure we're gonna go with a shield, so we're gonna one-hand the great axe. But, you know, so in actuality, it's just like identical to the longsword and just costs an extra gold. But it gives us the option to two-handed at some point. Yeah, so we'll go with great axes. It feels good for a dwarf. And our grit, now, you could pick strength, because strength is our good stat, so we'll pretty much always then succeed when we're kicking open doors and smashing things down. You know. Or you could pick dex, because it is our lower stat, so we kind of benefit a lot from the advantage by being able to roll twice when we're doing dexterous things. But we're going to go with strength. Yeah. It's a very kind of vague thing. Overcoming an opposing force. That's clear when it's like kicking open a door. It's like, okay, I guess. But slipping free of rusty chains. I guess the chains are an opposing force? I think grit could be reworded a little bit to be clearer to people. Yeah, I don't know. Alright, for our talent, we got weapon mastery with one additional weapon. That's pretty shitty, because most of the time you're not bouncing between a lot of different weapons. But if we want to use a ranged weapon, it's fairly handy. So ideally then we're going to want to grab something we can throw, which is either going to be spears, javelins, daggers. Let's go with javelins. Our hit points, boom, look at that. So we got, we rolled a 4 and a 7 on our D8. So we went with 7, +2 for being a dwarf, +1 for the con mod, 10 total hit points. Very nice at level 1. Okay, let's grab our great axe, and we're going to grab some javelins. Let's grab 3 javelins. For our armor, then, as much as we'd like the chainmail, it's quite expensive, so we're forced to go with leather armor and our shield. Leaves us down to 8 gold pieces. We're going to grab a backpack, because you kind of have to have a backpack. And then we don't have a lot of gold to throw around here, unfortunately. So we want to have some torches, and we want to have some rope. Gotta have the rations. 4 gold left. Let's grab the iron spikes, the flint and steel, and a crowbar, and that leaves us with 1 empty gear slot. So we're kind of full up going into the dungeon, which is a questionable decision. Our name is Nor. We are a neutral alignment that also worships Ord, god of magic. You know. Okay. There's our fighter done. Last but not least, we need a priest. So we're gonna... Oh! Boom! Done! 18 wisdom, baby! +2 con, +2 int, +4 wisdom, +1 charisma. Strength and dex are pretty shitty, but hot damn, is this a priest. And he's an acolyte. Well-trained in religious rites and doctrines. His ancestry, they really love to go with the goblin. Let's go with elf. It's fine. +1 to spellcasting. Class, priest. So the priest can use clubs, crossbows, daggers, maces, longswords, staves, and warhammers. Priests can actually use longswords, which is surprising. And they can use all armor and shields. So priests, you know, are almost leaning a bit more towards paladin in Shadowdark. And that's why having low strength kind of hurts us. We're meant to be a bit more frontline with the fighter. But we'll have to make do. We get the Turn Undead spell for free. It doesn't count toward our number of known spells. We get to we get a holy symbol for our deity that takes up no gear slots. And we know 2 tier 1 spells from the priest list. And there's not that many tier 1 priest spells in the core rulebook, especially considering you already know Turn Undead. Yeah, we'll go with Primordial. There are 2 random ones, Light and Protection from Evil. Light is pretty nice. Very nice spell. Pretty much you don't have to worry about torches going out. Because you just cast light on, like, the wizard's staff or something like that, and it's a bright light for 1 hour that really can't go out unless some anti-magic shit hits you or the staff gets lost or whatever. So that's pretty great. We're going to stick with light, but we're going to go with Cure Wounds. It's just so nice to have. I would struggle to have a priest in the group that didn't know Cure Wounds at level 1. So it restores a number of d6s of health equal to 1 plus half your level rounded down. So it's 1d6 health at level 1, which for most characters, that's perfectly good enough. Our talent, +1 to melee or ranged attacks. So we're going to have to do something with combat. I think we do need to kind of wade into melee. So we'll probably end up with like a mace or a warhammer. So let's go with melee attacks. Our health. Okay. That's actually decent. Because of our +2 con mod. So we have 5 HP. But we only ended up with 10 gold. We're a very poor priest. Not too many options here, which is a bummer. Because if we had a lot of gold, I would have definitely bought a shield for +2 armor class. But as it is, I can't even afford armor. So I don't know how much we're really going to be doing here at the start. I'm going to buy a mace just to have it. But I'm also going to buy some daggers so we can throw them. But those are fucking 1 gold a piece. No, fuck it. We really... our priest is so poor. This is where other characters would probably, like, hand some money over to make sure the priest is okay. But yeah, we have 3 gold to spend here. Well, he's got a lot of room to grow. He's got a lot of room to enhance himself with things that we find. We'll buy rations, even though, you know, it's just something you do. It's just something you do. We don't really need torches that much because we have light, so I'm not overly concerned with that. Other things, you know what? I'm gonna have someone buy caltrops. Beyond that, yeah, let's buy some rope as well. Okay, we'll leave it at that. So he's a little iffy. Rhynal. He's a neutral, and he's gonna worship Ged, the god of feasts, mirth, and the wilds. Okay, and we have our 4 characters ready to go. That only took 40 minutes. Okay, let me arrange our 4 characters. I have a lot of stuff that I'm trying to fit on screen here all at once. So we'll see how this works. It's going to be probably a little small. Many things are going to be a little small. Okay, good. Okay, that's 3 of the characters. You know, there's not a lot of information stored on these character sheets, so it's not like I have 4 5th edition D&D characters or something that I'm trying to display all at once and read. Shouldn't be too bad, but yeah, it's gonna be a little small. Okay, I guess we'll go with that. Okay. So, Lost Citadel of the Scarlet Minotaur. Here is the map, just so you can see. And it's a pretty extensive dungeon. There's like 27 separate rooms here. So, like I said, we're not finishing this in one go. But we'll see what we can do. So any sort of background, backstory, hook doesn't matter too much. We're here to earn our fortune and get some treasure. The priest, Rhynal, is, you know, he desires earthly possessions. So, yeah, here you go. Lost Citadel and the Scarlet Minotaur. It's a 1st to 3rd level adventure. So you could actually go in here at level 3. And it would still be potentially competitive atmosphere. So the background is that long ago, a mighty enclave of warriors lived inside the Lost Citadel. They worshipped bulls in ever bloodier cultish rituals that culminated in their leader, Minotaur, transforming into the Scarlet Minotaur. This immortal avatar of rage slaughtered the warriors in a single night of mayhem. However, some of their servants escaped through the unseen halls used by the lowly. These beastmen hid in the fallen citadel, trapped by superstitious fear of the outside. Now, again, you wouldn't really tell that to your players. And this thing doesn't even tell you any hooks. There's not even... Oh, there is a rumor table. So that kind is your potential thing for hooks. That ancient kings who dwelt in the Citadel possessed magical weapons that were feared far and wide. It's like, oh, well, we gotta get those. And, you know, rumors that a savage Minotaur drenched in blood stalks the Citadel's halls. So, this adventure is obviously keyed a lot around the Scarlet Minotaur. He is pretty fearsome. He's pretty much a normal Minotaur as far as stats, but he does have a special great axe that does ×4 damage on a crit. So if he crits you, you are dead. But even just the standard Minotaur, you can see the stats here, pretty horrific for level 1. He's got an AC of 14, which is decently high. 34 hit points. Obviously quite a bit. He gets 2 attacks from his Great Axe at +6, dealing 1d10 damage each. And he gets to use his horns at +6 that do 1d12 damage. And in place of attacks, he can instead move twice in a straight line and make a horn attack that does double damage. Basically, any of those things are almost certainly killing anybody at level 1. Our fighter could possibly tank, like, one of those hits. But, you know. So he's technically a level 7 creature. And even level, like, 1 creatures at level 1 can definitely kill you. If we find here, like, a level 1. Like a goblin. So here's a goblin. 11 AC, 5 HP, very killable in single shots or so. But they can deal 1d4 damage. And our thief has 1 fucking HP. So, you know, fortunately, the rest of our group is actually pretty decent on HP. I expected way worse than this. I expected more stuff like our thief, where we'd have 2 or 3 HP. But the rest are kind of okay. So, yeah, that's that. Okay? So, I am declaring right here, right now, that our goal for this adventure is to slay the Scarlet Minotaur. Now, I don't know how we're going to do that. I don't have a plan formulated in my mind. I haven't even read all the way through this adventure. So I don't know the exact specifics of how we're going to accomplish that, but I know that people have done it. I've read session reports about this adventure that players have killed the Scarlet Minotaur. So, you know, that's going to be our goal. Fearsome foe. We're going to have to be clever, but there is various ways that I have read about and know about that it could be done. Okay? So, the Citadel. Cicadas buzz in the arid shrubland around it. Thick sandy blocks and coral red columns hold up its tiered rooftops. And we're going to step into its hollowed halls. It's a risky location, so we're going to be checking for an encounter every 2 crawling rounds, or after the PCs make loud noises. And on a 1, there will be an encounter. So, by and large, then, that means that if you're quiet, you're not going to have that many random encounters. Every 2 rounds and only on a 1, yeah, I mean, it's not too likely. But the random encounters, fairly dangerous stuff. There's nothing too light here. You've got dark manals, beastmen, skeletons, ettercaps, and of course the Scarlet Minotaur can show up. And every time you roll on the random encounter table, after the first one, you're going to be applying a cumulative -2 to the result until the Scarlet Minotaur shows up. So it's kind of inevitable. If you hang out here long enough, you will encounter the Scarlet Minotaur. Okay? So we enter. And as soon as we enter, we're going to have the priest cast light. And let's just put it on, like, let's put it on the fighter's shield. Let's put it on Nor's shield. Because he's pretty much always going to be holding that, hopefully. So, spellcasting in Shadowdark is quite simple. Basically, every time you want to cast a spell, you have to roll a spellcasting check, which for wizards is their intelligence, and priests is their wisdom. And you're trying to meet or beat a number equal to 10 plus the tier level of the spell. So for tier 1, the number you're trying to hit is 11. So the our priest is going to be rolling a d20 plus 5, because it's 4 wisdom modifier and plus 1 for being an elf. And so he's very good at casting spells. He rolled a 5. So he already failed casting the light spell. That's okay. By the default rules, if you fail a spellcasting check, the spell does not cast and you lose it for the rest of the day until you take a rest. I and plenty of other people immediately changed that so that if you fail the spell, it still goes off, but then you lose it. Just because it's a really shitty... Like this. I mean, that's the first spellcasting check you ever do, just to cast a light spell, and you immediately fail. It's just a really shitty feeling. So, we are going to lose light for the rest of the day. We're only going to get this one cast of it, which is a bit of a bummer. Our adventuring day is going to be like an hour, but yeah, it's better than just not having losing the spell entirely, and that's it. So, yeah, that's how I run it at my table, and that's how I'm running it here. So the light spell goes off, but then the priest is like, fuck. My first big moment here. Alright, so we illuminate the room, and we enter into a large chamber. And we can't even see the entire breadth of this chamber, because if you go to the map, we might be able to. So, the light extends out to a near range, which is about a 30-foot diameter. This chamber is 5, 10, 15, 20, 40 feet across, 25 feet wide. So, we just barely can't make out, like, the sides of the room as we enter, but we can definitely see the murals along the walls. Floor-to-ceiling murals painted in vibrant jewel tones, and there's red pillars throughout the room, tapered, banded in black marble at the top and bottom. The murals display people in white robes kneeling in a room of red pillars before a colossal onyx bull with horns lowered. Now, it says there's a hidden niche behind the bull statue. I wasn't clear on what that means, because there isn't a physical bull statue in the room. There's just the bull in the mural. So I guess the hidden niche is in the wall that's been painted with this bull. And you can somehow open the niche to find a silver inlaid bull horn. Seems like a pretty unlikely treasure to find. I don't feel like most players... I don't know. I guess I've never played with like a true-blooded, old-school group that really knows their stuff. But I feel like my players would never start just like searching the murals and like running their hands along the wall. It wouldn't be something that I would really think to do. So, I'm not even going to give myself a roll for that one, unfortunately. But in this room, there is an ettercap. And an ettercap is basically a humanoid spider. They're bipedal. I think they walk on 2 legs. But they have a lot of spider limbs, and they can climb, and they're kind of freaky. But they are intelligent. They can speak and stuff. You know, they have their communities. And so in this room, hiding on the northeast corner of the ceiling, is an ettercap, Eska, who is described as weaselly and disloyal. They had just hidden a stolen pearl in area number 2, and if he is attacked, he screeches an alarm and flees towards area 4. So the first thing we need to determine is if we notice this thing. And you could do this a couple different ways, I suppose. You could have everyone roll a wisdom and seeing if anyone rolls well enough to beat a specific DC, or you could also have Eska roll a stealth check and then roll against that, or compare that to like a wisdom number, or things like that. Again, unlike something like Pathfinder, this is not all strictly written down as rules. It's meant for you to just adjudicate and go. So how I would run it, obviously, is just having everyone roll a wisdom check and seeing if it hits a good DC. I'd probably set it at like 15. So let's just do that. Let's just go down the line, see if anyone notices. So our thief +2 fails. Our wizard -1 actually succeeds. Our fighter at +1 fails, and our priest at +4 fails. So the only one to succeed and actually notice something in the corner, something kind of shifting and maybe living in the corner of the ceiling of this room, is the wizard. And the smart thing for him to do, of course, would be to not immediately exclaim and say, "Oh my god, what is that?" Point at it. But Eska only flees and screeches an alarm if he's attacked, not if he's noticed. I think that obviously there's plenty of groups, plenty of players that are very familiar with Ether caps and how they operate and that they can be communicated with. But if I just show new players a picture of an Ether cap, they're like, well, fucking destroy that. We'll say that our wizard, obviously being fairly intelligent, is going to try to use this to his best advantage. And I'm going to actually cast Charm Person. This is a humanoid target. They are level 1 or 2, I think, if we go to the Ettercap stats. Oh, actually, they're level 3. I'm sorry, I thought they were level 2. Then never mind, we're not going to be using Charm Person. That's something where it's like, if the player says, I want to cast Charm Person on them, do you just let them try and then say, oh no, doesn't work, they're not level 2? It's sort of this weird kind of meta concept. Or do you say, well, Charm Person's not going to work, I'm sorry, they're not level 2. They're not level 1 or 2 or something. I feel like they'd have to just try, but since we have unlimited information, we already know. Okay, so no Charm Person. I think then, in that case, the wizard probably, like, whispers to the other 3 that there's something living watching them from the corner of the ceiling over there. And we're probably going to try to ambush it. So, really, if we're trying to get a backstab, and if we're trying to game the backstab, which is ideal because it's so good, then we would come up with a plan where basically we'd all pretend like we're walking. So he's in the northeast, and there's a door to the east, and there's a door to the west as well. But we're going to pretend we're all walking to the east and just ignore it, like we don't even notice it. And we're just walking to the east. And then the thief is actually going to stop moving behind one of the pillars, cutting off line of sight to the creature that lives there or is hiding there. And then the thief is going to pop out and fire his crossbow. And take him by surprise. And we have rules for surprise attacks. This came up in the gauntlet. A creature who begins his turn undetected has the advantage of surprise. And I mean, I am hiding. The thief is hiding from the Ettercap. Now, GM could call for a dex check, but you know, often if it's just like if the fiction kind of works with it, and it's a clever plan, you know, again, a lot of this just comes down to, does it make sense? Is it, you know, the rule of cool comes into play as well. Is it logical? Does it make sense that it would work? Things like that. Then you just sort of roll with it. You don't force them into roles that they're kind of going to fail and make their cool plan just fall to shit because of bad RNG. Stuff like that. I mean, that's at least how I run things a lot of the time. So, like I said, I tend to be a fairly lenient, nice DM. So in this case, I think the thief just kind of gets his surprise attack against this Ettercap, who's probably watching the other three walk and being like, oh, thank God they're going past. Not expecting the thief to suddenly pop out from behind the pillar and shoot him with a crossbow. If the Ettercap was intelligent and realized that, oh, there was 4 and now there's 3, what happened to the other one? But I don't know if they're specifically, I mean, they have a +0 intelligence, so they're not super dumb, but they're not like renowned for intelligence either. So I don't know. You could give them something like that, but again, like, why bother? Just let them do this cool shit. Okay, so we're gonna give our thief his ambush attack with a crossbow, so he gets +4 to the roll, but it is a surprise attack. So he does get advantage on the roll, which is a big thing. And the number that we're trying to hit is a 12 AC. Now, he should be decently illuminated due to the light coming off of our fighter's shield. The fighter has not left the room or anything, so this thing is kind of exposed, and he's just hoping that they don't see him. But we did. We did. So let's see. A 7 and a 13. So we got a 17 on our roll, which is higher than the 12. It's definitely a hit. And we're going to give ourselves a backstab because the creature was pretty unaware of this surprise attack. Yeah. I mean, feel free to disagree with any of my rulings here in the way I play things. If you think there should be more rolling involved, more chances of failure, you know, aspects like that. Each GM is going to be different. You know, you can have 100 DMs that run the same adventure, and it all plays out completely differently due to player actions and DM decisions. But we're going to go with it. So we've got 3d6 on our crossbow. Let's roll them bones. 3d6 is a total of 7 damage, which is actually only half his health. We're actually pretty unlikely to take this thing down in one shot. That would actually been it would have had to have been a really good 3d6. But half his health in one go. The Ettercap is not a light target. (12 AC, 14 HP. They can do some bite attacks, poison webs. Yeah, I mean, certainly pretty dangerous. But this thing is a Weasley thing, and as soon as he is attacked, he's going to screech an alarm and flee towards Area 4. And that's where I think probably I would call for initiative. We have initiated combat with this thing, and its plan is to flee through... I don't know if it's going to open the door or if the door is already open. I would probably say the door is already kind of open. So it's just going to try to run through. But the other three are kind of on their way to the door. They're like almost there. So it's a bit tricky. It's not trapped yet, but it could be pretty soon. So let's roll initiative. For our solo purposes, just to keep things simple, we're going to have one initiative roll for all of my characters, one for the enemies. So our roll from our characters is going to be the +3 from Thief. You would never do it this way at a table, because it's really not. It's not. I mean, it's pretty cheesy that the wizard with his -1 dex and stuff gets to just ride on the thieves, but just to keep things simple. And then the Ettercap has +2 dex, so the numbers are pretty close. Our side gets a 13, the Ettercap 18. So the Ettercap is going to be going first. How far can he move? Well, he can move. He can climb as fast as he can walk. So that means that he can move, if you want a specific footage count, probably 60 feet on his turn, climbing or running. He is here in this northeast corner, so he just needs to move 10 feet to the door, and then he's in area 2. He's gone. So that number was pretty key. That initiative roll was pretty key if we wanted to actually kill this thing. And there's just not a lot we can do about it. He raced out of there before we really have a chance. And I could see some players being a little upset about that. The thing was, I would say that the other 3 didn't exactly know when the thief was going to fire. So that's why they didn't also get a surprise round. The thief just told them to keep walking towards that door. And I'll take care of this. Maybe the thief was confident that he would one-shot it. It's hard to say. But the Ettercap is gone. And he has screeched an alarm. And so now what that's going to do is that 3 more Ettercaps from Area 4 are going to set up an ambush in Area 2. Now, I know that as a DM. The players wouldn't know that. I don't know. I assume Ettercaps speak Common. Or I don't know if they speak a specific spider language. I guess in D&D they do speak a spider-derived language. I guess 5th edition D&D dumbed them down quite a bit. Yeah, Shadowdark, obviously very open, very flexible. But here, from the 3.5 edition D&D, Ettercaps do speak Common. So if you want to go that route, you can go that route. If you want to make them just speak a spider language, you can go that route. Or you could have them not speak at all and they just communicate through gestures and body language or pheromones or something, who knows. Hold on just a sec. Let me see. Okay. I was looking at the monster overhaul by Skirples, which is like the best OSR bestiary out there. It doesn't have ettercaps in here. It just says that if you're going to use ettercaps, use the information for giant spiders, but they are sapient instead. So that doesn't really tell us a whole lot. But I just wanted to... Yeah, I just wanted to check. Okay. The way that I would run it, I mean, we can see here that if you're listening from Area 3 next to Area 4 where the ettercaps hang out, you hear shrill tittering whispers. Chittering sounds. So, I would probably say... If you don't allow them to speak common, and they only, like, speak in their spider language, it makes them much more just a hostile threat in the dungeon, and that's kind of it. If you let them speak common, you can do quite a bit more with it. I think it offers a lot more flexibility to the players. They have the potential to maybe negotiate with them, or maybe threaten them, or, you know, who knows what. Language obviously allows you to do a lot of things. Now, it does say that the ettercaps came from the caves below the Citadel. They're tempted by forgotten gems and gold. They plan to depart as soon as they have enough loot, a moment which never seems to arrive. They are leaderless and unanimously greedy. So that offers some options, then, I think. So, we're going to let them speak common. We're going to do that. And now I'm trying to remember why I even was discussing that. Oh, anyways. So, bottom line, the ettercap is gone, the ambush is being set up, and they are very silent. So, we're not going to really hear any ambush in there. We can, at this point, kind of peer into the next room, which we see as being a blinding cave. So it's this huge area. Actually, we can't even see that. All we see is this hallway. So we don't see shit. We just see him dash down a hallway. Probably like climbing along the ceiling or something. So now the characters would have to make the decision of, do we chase after this thing? Oh, I know why I was trying to decide. Because I was trying to decide if it was shrieking an alarm, which means that it doesn't just communicate through pheromones, obviously. Shrieking alarm, was it saying, like, alarm? You know, was it shrieking in common that they could understand that it's shrieking an alarm? Or was it shrieking in, like, a spider language, and it just sounded like some loud, abrupt noise before it sprinted away? Again, I play with a group that's pretty new, pretty inexperienced, and pretty inept. So I try to throw them as many bones as I can just to maybe help them out a bit. So for them, yes, I probably would have it speak common and shriek something about intruders or something before it sprints off. So we'll just follow that for right now. So they attack this thing. The thief knows that it got a pretty solid hit with his crossbow, and the thing didn't die, and proceeded to sprint out of the room. Now, so we have 20 crossbow bolts, and this is if you're going to track every specific bolt and arrow that you fire. You know, you keep ticking down. Maybe you recover some. In this case, I'd probably say it's stuck in the ettercap, so you don't get that back. And then you trick down until you have one. But I really like the usage dice from the Black Hack. So in that case, instead of 20 crossbow bolts, we'd have a usage die of a D8. God. So anytime that you use your crossbow or your bow or whatever, and after the combat is over, even if you only shot it once or if you shot it 20 times, you know, you don't really worry too much. But each time you use it, you're going to roll that usage dice. And I think if you roll a 1, it might just be a 1. Let me... Okay, it's 1 or a 2. Yeah, all right. So right now, for the crossbow bolts, for our thief, we're going to roll a d8. If we roll a 1 or a 2, our usage die is going to tick down to a d6. And then the next time we have to roll it, we roll a d6. 1 or 2 goes down to a d4. And then if we roll a d4 and we get a 1 or a 2, then normally you would just lose it then. It would be out. But some people suggested for like arrows and bolts, it's a lot more exciting if you declare that you only have 1 left. At that point, you have 1 bolt left, 1 arrow left. Once you use that, it's out. The Black Hack and some other systems use usage dice for like everything. Torches, armor, you know, rations, spikes, oil flasks, like everything, you know. I would pretty much only use it in this game for arrows and bolts, because it's kind of a pain to track. It's like the one thing that's the most annoying to track and keep track of specific numbers and people trying to reclaim them and stuff like that. So I'm going to use it just for this. So we're going to roll our d8 for our thieves crossbow bolts. He got a 2, so we're going to bump that number down right away to 6. Which is a little unfair because he only shot it once, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. Okay. Yeah, okay. So, in this case, then, they hear him, like, shriek about intruders and rush down a dark hallway into spaces unknown. So, our group is going to be a little bit smarter about it, and we're actually going to close this door that's right here that leads to the hallway. So we're going to close the door that the Ettercap ran past, and we're actually going to iron spike it, just to be sure. We don't want anything coming from that direction. If he's gathering up his buddies, we don't want them ambushing us in the dark. And I believe it's a stone door, actually, so it's going to be pretty unlikely for them to bash this thing open. And if they try, we're going to hear it. So I'm actually going to take 3 of the fighter's iron spikes, and we'll just jam it under the door. Okay? And we're going to head west instead. We're going to go away from the Ettercap nightmare zone. Now, will actual players do something like that? That's hard to say. I think a lot of players would chase after it because it's like, it's their quarry, you know, it's injured. We gotta kill it, and they'll run after it, but it's kind of dangerous. I think setting up the ambush would take time. If they chase immediately after him, there's not going to be an ambush waiting for them immediately, because the other Ettercaps are all the way over here in Area 4. So he's got to alert them, and they got to set this up. If they chase after him immediately, though, they end up in the Blinding Cave, which is covered in these smooth shards of quartz. And as soon as you bring in a bright light, such as our light spell, you have to roll a dex save or be blinded for 1d4 rounds. And this doesn't affect the Ettercaps at all. So chances are that Ettercap is getting away regardless. And they're going to set up the ambush. But it's possible. You could chase after him. You could, you know, the thief could be not blinded and maybe fire off another crossbow round. But he's still got 7 health left. It's a little tricky. So, but we're going west. So we're going to go through the doorway there. And the fighter's in the lead. He's still got his light shield. And he creeps along the hallway very carefully. And the thief probably should be searching for traps instead of the fighter just stepping forward. But it's funny because I as a player have very, very, very little experience playing stuff like this, like OSR stuff, dungeon modules, and stuff like that. I have very little experience playing it because most of my experience playing RPGs is with my usual DM that DM'd for years, and we almost never went into any dungeons. Our gameplay in like D&D 4th edition, Shadow of the Demon Lord, Dungeon World, stuff like that, almost never involved dungeons, like underground dungeons or anything like that, or traps. We did it occasionally. I can remember a few examples, but most of the time our stuff was very outdoor, open world, like getting up to shenanigan kind of stuff. Like, we tended to avoid dungeons just because, to me, dungeons meant combat. You know, playing like 4th edition D&D. Dungeons meant encountering room after room of creatures that you had to fight. And I tended to just avoid combat as much as I could. And dungeons meant that it was harder to avoid combat because you were in cramped conditions. It was very easy to just stumble into monsters, and there you go. Whereas outdoors in the open world, you had a lot more options to kind of bounce around and avoid things and avoid dangerous, you know, locations and all sorts of stuff like that. But the thing is, like old school D&D, such as First Edition, BX, and OSR stuff, you are kind of meant to avoid combat or work your way around combat. There's very little incentive to do combat most of the time because you don't really get anything out of it specifically. You don't get any XP for it. You get maybe treasure if the creature has any, but usually the creatures are like guarding the treasure and you want to get at that. So combat is a way of getting to treasure maybe, but combat is also really dangerous and you tend to want to avoid it or come up with clever solutions to it. So, you know, I started with 4th edition D&D, which is obviously not that. But had I started with earlier stuff, I probably would have been drilled better mentality for dungeons and things like that. So as it is, as a player, I'm not really sure how to handle these kind of situations and how to avoid traps and stuff like that. I don't think there's actually a large amount of traps in the dungeon. And I think newer designers of modules tend to avoid just like, yeah, you step on a trap and you trigger it and you die. That kind of stuff. Because it's not very fun, it's not very creative, it's not very interesting for players or DMs. But anyways. So we're approaching, and we step into Area 15 here. Jar storage. So we have a big square room. There's a sulfuric scent in the air, and we hear occasional faint squeaks and hisses. Most notably in this room, there is a large number of terracotta jars, 20 of them. They're fat and rounded, various heights. And they're all sealed, stamped with images of people carving wheat with scythes. Now, the actual lesser-known information that we shouldn't know as players is that inside of all of them, there's a sticky black mush from this wheat that's really gone bad. And due to sulfuric gas buildup, shaking or striking any of the jars causes them to shatter. You have to roll a dex check or take 1d4 damage, and there's possibility of a chain reaction of these jars exploding. But one of the jars has an ivory egg with gray veins, worth 40 gold pieces. Outside of that, we have another passageway to the west and a door to the south. And the door is carved in common, Rip Orwin the Younger. What would I do about the jars? Would I open one? They're sealed with cork and wax, so they're not easily just popped open. Oh, God. I mean, it's certainly... I think it's certainly likely that these things are going to go off for most players. Because players are going to see these jars and are going to think... Well, you know, I want to get one open. I want to see what's inside. And then they see there's a cork and wax. And then they're like, well, maybe I'll shake it to see if there's anything that... You know, is there like a liquid in there? Should I just break one? And then they shake it and it explodes. Because you wouldn't think that they're going to explode. Most people wouldn't. So, I didn't even give my thief a dagger? Are you serious? Okay. Well, the thief is going to borrow the wizard's dagger. And he's going to try and pry open one of these corks. And try and cut out the wax and pop it open. And as a DM, I would certainly call for a dex check on this one. But it is a delicate task, so the thief, very likely to succeed here. With his +3 dex and advantage. And we'll set the DC at... we'll set it at 12, I guess, to open it. Okay, so he rolled a 21, so he's fine. He manages to deftly cut out one of these corks and open it up. And he gets hit with a very strong sulfuric scent. Like, sulfuric gas, really. And inside he just finds sticky black mush. There is a 5% chance, though, for this first jar that he found the one with the ivory egg. Okay, he didn't find it. So, I doubt many players are going to actually try and search all of these 20 jars. And again, I don't think most players would suspect that, like, oh, it smells like sulfuric gas. That means that they're going to explode if I shake one. You could give, you know, if you're trying to really be nice and help out your players, you could give them an intelligence check to put that together. Set the DC at 15 and, you know, just see what happens. So, I guess let's do it. Just to be nice. Again, this is probably what I would do when I'm going to run it for my family. Okay. 2 of them actually did succeed on that check. And so I would tell them that you suspect that these jars contain, like, very ancient rotten wheat that is causing a sulfuric gas buildup, making the jars very volatile. And that's probably all I'd say there. I don't know if I would say all the jars. I think I'd say that jar. You know, let them make their own assumptions about the rest of the jars. But again, I think it's very unlikely they would search all the jars just to find an egg worth 40 gold pieces that, really, why would they even think that it's in there? You know? It seems just like... I would love to know the numbers on people running this adventure and how many find this egg. The only way I would say likely is if like a chain reaction blows up all the jars, and then you find the eggs sitting like in the rubble. That would be probably the most likely. But that amount of noise is absolutely going to draw, I might just say, the Scarlet Minotaur. Because a big aspect of this is sound. The Scarlet Minotaur is drawn to sound. And the beastmen that live throughout the dungeon are actually very, very strict about making any sound. And if they catch you making any noises, they immediately drop down their like reaction to you towards hostile, because they don't tolerate any amount of sound going on in this place because it draws the Scarlet Minotaur. So that would be a pretty big deal. It's blowing all the jars. So let's go. Let's leave that alone, I think, and go down this southern door. So the fighter will peek through. That goes into room 17, where he immediately sees a towering bull before realizing that it's a bronze statue. And the head and horns are smashed deeply into the cracked wall. So he looks down. He looks like it looks like a long hallway. Maybe you can kind of make out like sort of almost like tracks that run along the length of this hallway. And it would probably be pretty easy to surmise based on that this statue runs along these tracks, and it like smashed into the wall, and there's a body pinned between the wall and the head of this bull. So someone stepped into this room, presumably Orwin the Younger. He triggered this statue trap that charged forward and smashed into the wall with his body. And, you know, if he wasn't dead, then he was pinned there until he died. But now the statue is kind of broken and just sits there. And so, of course, you know, we're looking for treasure, so we're going to loot every part of this we can. We could dismantle this statue for the bronze, I suppose. But more notably, there is a shattered emerald embedded in the forehead. So, yeah, it's not a big kind of fist-sized lump of emerald. It's multiple smaller chunks and slivers. But we can gather it up. Someone might have some use for it. So that's 20 gold pieces. And that is actually enough in itself to give us all an XP. The old school method is you get XP from treasure and from gold, from coins. Different systems do this in different ways. You know, the traditional ways that, like, you get 1 XP for every single gold worth of treasure that you recover. Shadowdark simplifies that a lot. And basically, let me bring up the... So, treasure has 4 categories. Poor is worth 0 XP. This is anything that's ordinary, low value, unexciting, you know, typical stuff. Like standard equipment. Like if we find 60 feet of rope or something like that, that's not worth anything to you. That's not really treasure. It might be useful to you, but it's not treasure. 1 XP for normal stuff. Anything that has a good value, that's worth protecting, that's useful. Again, more so than just a rope. Something that is actually treasure. 3 XP for fabulous stuff. Credible, it's prized, well guarded. You know, the special kind of stuff that you might find. Anything that's not just like, yeah, this is some, like, a gem that's worth 50 gold pieces, or, you know, a locket, or a little crucifix, you know, anything that's kind of special. And then the legendary stuff, where 10 full XP is the mythic stuff, the unique, the legendary items, quest-worthy items that you might go through a whole dungeon to find. The biggest of stuff. And so when players find things like this, they are all awarded the XP as soon as they claim it. Doesn't have to be strictly treasure and gold and things like that. It can be less tangible stuff, like you earn a blessing, or you get an oath of, loyalty, or who knows, various things like that. Or it's some sort of meaningful trophy. Or you can even give out XP for clever thinking and clever plans. Oftentimes, I'll give out luck tokens instead for that kind of thing. But yeah, you could throw out an XP as well forever. If it's a real group effort of cleverness that they pull off, why not? So per treasure find, each group should gain about 10 gold pieces times their average party level in value, or around 20 gold pieces in value for levels 0 to 3. And so that's typically what I am thinking of for like 1 XP worth of treasure. If you find stuff worth like 20 to 50 gold pieces at level 1, that's like worth an XP. Above that, you might start to maybe get into 3 XP or 2 XP maybe. But 3 XP really should be kind of something above the usual like bric-a-brac crap that you gather up in a dungeon, the gems and like valuable wine, or blah blah blah. So it's not even necessarily like a value of the treasure in a monetary thing, although it often is more valuable. It's up to the GM to just kind of figure out. But the XP should flow pretty decently if they are finding treasure. So for here, for gathering up the Shattered Emerald, we're going to go ahead and hand out an XP for everybody, so we can bump everyone up. For leveling, you need to gather up an XP amount equal to 10 times your current level. So to go from level 1 to 2, you need 10 XP, and then your XP goes back to 0. To get to level 2, then you need 20, then 30, then 40, then 50, so on. So it's a pretty simple system. It's not like the old school where, yes, to get this next level, you need 1.8 million XP, or whatever it is. But alright. So someone is actually going to have to take the Shattered Emerald. We'll give it to the wizard. Shattered Emerald. And then the actual body, he does have chainmail and a helm on. So this is our chance at chainmail. I don't know if it has like a huge puncture wound in it or not. That would kind of depend. And he's also pinned in the wall, so getting the chainmail off of him is going to be quite tricky. We're going to have to try to move this statue. So I think this is just going to be a group effort. But unfortunately, our strength numbers are terrible. I don't think I even would allow this group to brute force this and just push the statue out of the wall. You'd have to come up with some sort of clever plan. And I don't have much. Our spells are quite limited. Our equipment is quite limited. I don't even have like some sort of mechanism that I could think of to lever this out of the wall. I mean, I could give the dwarf a roll if he insisted, just because you never know. He might roll like a 19 or a 20. I might allow it then. Okay, he rolled a total of 18. It says that it's smashed deeply into the wall. I don't think I'd allow it. I don't know. I mean, I'm a nice DM. I still don't think I'd allow it. You'd have to come up with some sort of better plan. Now, what you could try and do, because the head and the horns are kind of cracked and busted a little bit from smashing into the wall. So you could potentially take out like a crowbar and start like breaking up the head, because it's bronze. I mean, bronze is not indestructible or anything. But that's going to make a lot of noise. Metal just ringing out on metal. You are definitely drawing a random encounter based on that. So I don't think that's going to work. I think we have to leave this chainmail behind. He does have a bastard sword, but no one really benefits from having that. Only the fighter can use it. And he has its great axe, so nothing. In his backpack, though, which I would say you probably can access, there's another torch, 10 pitons or iron spikes, 60 feet of rope, a withered apple, and a silver locket with a painting of a smiling red-haired woman. So I guess we'll take the locket, even though it's another fucking gear slot. Okay, outside of that, there's not really anything else in this room. We can keep walking down the hallway cautiously, but it's just a dead end. So there's nothing else to have here. So we'll step back out, and then Nor will continue to the west. I think it's been long enough that we should roll for a random encounter. So we'll roll 1d6. If we get a 1, we get a random encounter. We got a 1, baby! This is going to change everything. So maybe as we walk back into room number 15, let's roll our random encounter. D8. 7. Dark mantles swoop out, bobbing and spinning in a territorial warning dance. Okay, dark mantles. Not a creature I'm overly familiar with, I'll admit. Let's go to the stat block. Floating black octopus with rows of red eyes and a webbed skirt of tentacles. They also extinguish all light sources in near. Oh, if that's an action they have to take. Okay, they're not overly vicious. They're level 1. They have 4 health, so not too bad. But darkness is pretty dangerous in a game like this, because if we plunge into darkness, and I don't have the light spell anymore. Now, I don't know if that's magical darkness as well. That's kind of a good question. Because it sounds like, yeah, this will put out our light spell. So if they activate that, that's pretty bad. And we'll assume our fictional players have a lot of experience and know what dark mantles could do, and know that these things could extinguish our light if they're aggravated. So let's say that these dark mantles came from area 16, I suppose. Where exactly they came from is hard to say, but they came out of that and they started swooping in from area 16. They, of course, immediately notice our light because they hate light. And so they start doing this weird gyration and this dance to kind of like ward us off. And so we have the option of potentially like scooting towards the east again and maybe go away from them. I mean, again, I would make it clear, especially for newer players, like these things, you can tell. You can just tell instinctively that they're not attacking you. They're not like rushing forward towards you, and they're doing these gyrations, these movements that are threatening to you. Like you feel like they don't want you there, and you can kind of see them I don't know, being aggravated perhaps a bit, or agitated is a better word, by your light. They want you gone. They want you out of here. And they, they're tense. Basically, kind of forecast a little bit that you haven't initiated combat. As it is, they're not like attacking you actively, but you're on the cusp. What do you do? So our couple options would be to go back into Area 17 and retreat that way, which is a terrible option. Don't do that. We could rush forward and just attack these Dark Mantles, which is not the greatest option. If we convene real quickly and talked amongst each other, we could probably plan an alpha strike. The wizard could use magic missile, thief could use his crossbow, the fighter could throw a javelin, and then the priest just clenches his butt cheeks because he has nothing. He doesn't even have a torch, because I specifically was like, I don't need that, I have the light spell. If I had the light spell still, that would be such a good thing, because he could just immediately, like, be ready, knowing that they're going to extinguish light sources. He could just be ready to cast light, on his mace, and be ready to go, but he doesn't have that. So the Alpha Strike plan, assuming everyone else hits and does 4 damage, which is a little unlikely, we could persevere. Now, newer gamers and video gamers would look at that plan and say, well, fuck, we can't kill all of them in one go. They're going to extinguish our light and they're going to kill us. The survivors are going to kill us. But that's not how RPGs should be run, especially games like this, because of the morale rules. And so, if we fucking Alpha Strike and go boom, 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 and we take out 2 of them, like, before they even get a chance to do anything, the other 2 are probably going to be like, oh, fuck, this isn't worth it, and flee. Most creatures are not immune to morale checks, as it might list for some of them. Most creatures, when threatened by an overwhelming force, will flee for their lives, whether it be, humans or animals or anything in between. There is a handful of creatures that are fearless, immune to morale checks, like cultists because they're crazy, or skeletons because they're just, mindless, things like that. But anything that has a mind that is somewhat within reason will likely flee when danger becomes overwhelming, which is hopefully also true for players. So I think the Alpha Strike might work here, and we're going to go with it. Question that I would have is, does this constitute an unaware opponent? I don't think so. It's a surprise, so I think all of us will have advantage on our attacks. In a live play showcasing the game, Kelsey, the designer, allowed Surprise to also be the halfling attacking from in between the elf character's legs. Not a full surprise round, but enough to trigger the ability if the attack landed. An actual surprise round is something that should be rare for the players to trigger, especially considering monsters can see in the dark, but the players can't. Okay, so then maybe it wouldn't be. There's also surprise as in the round before combat initiative, which is what this would be. Combat is not started. Someone has to kick it off, though. This is exactly the sort of thing where it's like, you should just have a ruling and not worry about what rules are, what other people say, or anything like that. But this feels kind of instrumental going forward, especially because a lot of the times you're meant to have like reaction rolls for random encounters and various things like that, where it's not just, oh, there's a horde of enemies and they see you and they charge towards you. Like, there's meant to be more of like wariness. So I guess so here's from a subreddit, the D&D subreddit, about attacking before you roll initiative. My DM, when we played, it always was just like, okay, you do that attack, and then we roll initiative. You know, and that's how I've been DMing for my family for like the last year or so. That's just how it is. You know, you were the one that got the opening attack, and then we go. But, and I didn't really think much about it, and they didn't really think, you know, that was just how it was. Someone got an opening attack. Sometimes they would coordinate like I wanted to do here, where they would all get an opening attack, which is basically a surprise round, except in Shadowdark, is a true surprise round, you all get an advantage. In this case, I would say it's not a surprise, but they do just get an opening attack. And then we roll initiative, and maybe they get another attack right away. You know, it's possible. It's not an ambush, though. We are staring at each other. I think that's probably the way that I'm going to adjudicate it. Yeah, it's hard to say. So, I mean, the people in the D&D subreddit were like, no, you just roll initiative, regardless of what they declare, and then, you know, they do that on their turn. That's ridiculous, because if you roll shitty on your initiative, and it's like, oh, I'm swinging my great axe at this bandit, and then, like, 8 other bandits go before you finish that swing, that's just stupid. I would never do that. That is fucking anathema to me. That sounds so horrific. I would leave that table if that's what the DM decided. I can't even imagine. Because, like, I would think, like, my axe sinks into this guy's head, kind of shocking everybody, and then combat breaks out. Like, that's how I picture it in, like, the movie version of what's happening. But, I don't know. You know, D&D, they're always sticklers, and I hate it. Anyways, so, let's just do our Alpha Strike. No advantage, no ambush, no backstab, none of that. It's just an opening attack, and then we roll initiative. Yes, that is advantageous to the party that fires first. That's usually why it's a good idea to fire first. Now, obviously, initiative is meant to sort of allow the faster reacting characters to, you know, react first and act first in a combat. And I would say that's a nice thought, except that it's a fucking random D20 roll that really has very little bearing on your -1 or +1 of your dex. So why not just encourage the sort of proactivity of players that want to, like, strike first as part of the fiction? That seems more in line with the OSR mentality. So, yes, that's what's going to happen. The elf, their priest, is just going to stand there. he's aware of the plan, but he he doesn't have much to do. And the other three are gonna like discuss this real quick and then suddenly turn around and blast. Okay, so 4 Dark Mantle. Actually, was it 4 or was it 1d4? It was 1d4. Okay, we might not even have that many. Let me roll a d4. Okay, we got 4. Damn it. All right. Fine. Okay. And you know, they're like, okay, I'll take the one on the left, and I'll take the one on the right. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. So one of them, crossbow, +4, with d6 damage. They got 13 AC. This is not an easy target. But remember, all 4 of them start with a luck token because we're playing with the solo rules. Which you know, I'm also starting, like, my family, when they play, they all get a luck token at the start, just because it's more pulpy, it's more fun. Alright, Thief's Roll. He rolled a 7, +4 is 11, that would be a miss. So he's going to spend his luck token. There we go. It's a hit for d6 damage, 5 damage, boom, right in the mouth. Dead Dark Mantle. No ifs, ands, or buts. Second, the Wizard. The Wizard is going to be casting Magic Missile. Magic Missile does 1d4 damage if you succeed on the casting check. And he also has advantage on the spell casting check. That's its kind of special thing. So he gets to roll twice. He's adding +3. Yep, +3. And he needs 11 or higher. And he got it. So he can continue to cast Magic Missile for the rest of the day. That's fine. And he's doing d4 damage. He needs a 4 in order to kill one of them. He got the 4. Done. Excellent. Dice falling in my favor here. I'm just going to denote here who has a luck token and who doesn't. Yeah, just to make it easy. Okay. Then the fighter, targeting a 3rd Dark Mantle with his Javelin. He's got +3, which is not overwhelming, but it'll have to do. We need a 10 or higher, so we got a basically 50-50 here. Or 55 chance. Go. He got it. Perfect. And then he's got 1d4 +1. Okay, he rolled a 2. He got 2 damage. So, half killed a 3rd Dark Mantle. Now we roll initiative. So we could potentially kill them before they even have a chance to flee, which would be pretty awesome. Just this barrage of shit. So we're going to roll +3 on our side, +3 on their side. Our roll is an 11, theirs is a 12. So they get to go first, but they're going to make their morale roll, which in Shadowdark is pretty simple. It's just a DC 15 wisdom check. And I could roll for both of them individually, but we'll keep it simple. They rolled a 17. They are not backing down, which is pretty surprising. Because now things are going to get a lot worse. So we're all within near of each other. They're going to go first. The first one, of course, is going to plunge out our light source. So we drop into darkness, which we were not planning on. And then the second one is going to bite. And we'll be nice to ourselves and just go for the fighter who's standing out in front. So this is a +3 on a d20. He hits, and he does d4 damage. 3 damage to the fighter. So he's got the Dark Mantle on him. Like, you know, he's clutching him. It's not a grab, but he's like, you know, he's there. He knows he's there. The other one is a bit more nebulous. It's still on the ceiling, so it's a lot harder to see. So now it's our turn. The fighter's going to go first. There's not really rules for like switching out equipment or anything like, you know, again, it's pretty loose. I don't know if there is any specific rules. Here's for OSR, and they say there's not a consensus on wanting to switch weapons or anything like that. It's going to depend on the game you're running. It's going to depend on the DM, all sorts of stuff like that. But most of the time, it doesn't seem like people are really too strict about pulling out a new weapon or something. So the fighter's going to pull out his great axe, and he's going to try to hit this dark mantle that just bit him. So it's a +3, and he has disadvantage. It's very unlikely he's going to do this, even if he does use his luck token. This is a shitty scenario until someone gets a light going. And he does have torches, so he could try to light that instead, but it's kind of almost worse odds, actually, even though it would be more beneficial to the group. We're gonna hope the thief can get it going. So maybe I should have the thief go first then. Yeah, that would make the most sense. So the thief's gonna pull out a torch, drop his unloaded crossbow, and pull out a torch and his flint and steel, and try to get it going. So I think the thief actually gets advantage. Yes. This is from the designer herself, saying that you should have to roll to light it in stressful situations. Oh, actually, she says you should have to require a roll to relight a torch in darkness in all circumstances, even outside of combat. And typically with disadvantage unless you're a thief and can cancel it out via the thievery class talent. So it's just a straight roll. She didn't say the DC. The person that made the topic said DC 12, and she seemed to agree with that. So we're going to go DC 12. The thief just rolls it straight up. He doesn't have a luck token, so we're just going to have to get a 9 or higher. We did not. So we're still struggling with the torch. It is what it is. The fighter then is going to try and attack the dark mantle with his great axe with disadvantage. He got an 8 and a 17, so not quite enough. I could use the luck token, but I'm not overly threatened, I guess. So we'll just leave it. Then we have the wizard, who could cast magic missile at something, but you can't see anything. So it's like how you're not even aware of where to like point your finger gun, you know, of your magic missile. So I just don't see it. And I gave the wizard fucking torches, but not flint and steel. So there's just no luck there. Honestly, I don't see what the wizard and the priest really do. You would just hear like sounds, you know, and you'd hear like the flapping of their flesh and stuff. Like darkness is really bad in Shadowdark, obviously. I think that's about all we got. We're really desperately hoping for the thief to light this thing. So it's going to switch back to the dark mantles. The one is going to keep attacking the fighter. So it's a D20. That's definitely going to be a hit for D4 more. 4 more damage. Now he's starting to get a little worried. The other one is going to swoop in and go for the wizard. So also a hit for 3 damage. Yeah, things are getting dicey. Back to the thief to try and desperately light this torch. D20. He got it. Okay. Burst into light, revealing these horrific creatures kind of trying to bite us with their big suckers. I mean, you know, look at these things. Horrific. That's what's on us. Okay, but now the fighter sees his quarry, and this is going to be it. This is going to be the strike. Boom. There it is. 15. No problem. D8 plus 1. 3 damage. Do I rule that that was the injured one or not? You know, it's the... Again, I'm a nice DM. And I don't keep track of all that sort of specific shit. So I tend to just be nice and let him slaughter it. So, boom. Dark Mantle, dead. There's only one left. The priest will step forward with his mace. Maybe he'll be able to do something. You never know. Yes, 19 for D6 damage. No, only 1. Okay, well, I'm not that nice. It's 1 damage. He's got 3 health left. Just leaves the wizard with magic missile to try and pelt him down. So we got a 14, so that's a successful cast for D4 damage. Got the 3. Done. Okay. Victorious. Now, it says you roll for an encounter after the PCs make loud noises. That doesn't include combat unless for some reason it's very specifically loud combat. Because otherwise you would just... you would have a non-stop cavalcade of random encounters. So we're okay there. Alright, but the fighter is bleeding from multiple holes in his body, so the priest is going to be casting Cure Wounds on him. It's a +5 to the roll. He succeeds, so no problem there. He heals D6 for damage. Priest will just cast it again. That's how it works. Again, a success. Healing 2, back to 9. And then we'll heal the wizard. Now that's going to be a fail. I don't want to lose Cure Wounds, so we're going to use our luck token. There you go, success. For 1 damage. Fuck. It is what it is. We'll leave it at that. Okay. And I'm going to leave this session at that. Not so bad so far. We found a little bit of treasure. We killed some dark mantles. And we still have a lot of dungeon left to go. Yeah, but you can see like kind of how intense combat can be. You know, that was all theater of the mind, no grid of any kind. And that was a random encounter, which normally I am diametrically opposed to as a player. I just abhor it, or I used to. But that was back, like I said, in like the D&D 4th edition days, where it's just like, I want to go here. I want to get to this exciting thing. I don't want to bump into a pack of wolves that I have to spend 45 minutes fighting in the woods. You know, that's really lame. But here, you know, this is part of the whole atmosphere, and it's tense, and it's kind of exciting. The Dark Mantles extinguished our light, and we are desperately trying to relight the torch so we can kill these things, and they're picking away at our bodies as we try and do so. Like, it's pretty exciting stuff, and that's OSR. I mean, that's old school stuff. That's exciting. So, yeah, I think it's pretty good. And obviously, I really like Shadowdark. As a system, I think it's just kind of loose enough, just rulesy enough. It's right in the sweet spot. So we're gonna be continuing this. Don't worry, this is not the end of these 4. We have a lot of dungeon left to go, and our goal is to kill the Scarlet Minotaur, which is not going to be easy, but we have confirmed, we have characters that have confirmed that the jars in this room are explosive. So if we could set a trap for the Scarlet Minotaur, we could probably take him out pretty easily. Each one of those jars has the potential to do 1d4 damage. So I think that might be an avenue of taking out the Scarlet Minotaur. But I would have to very specifically adjudicate how the jars are arranged around the room, because they might not necessarily be in the best placement for like an ambush where we want to concentrate them into one spot. But moving them is going to be pretty risky. That's going to be like a dex check to move each one. So, yeah. I'll have to think about that. But anyways, my name is Mang. This has been Shadowdark, Lost Citadel, the Scarlet Minotaur. I'll see you fine folks in the next